What is up, everybody? I'm Johnny Breaux, and in today's episode, we're gonna get creepy, we're gonna get spooky, we're gonna get into Reddit, we're gonna read some creepy Reddit stories, and I don't know, just jump in, get random with it, man. Just gonna kind of scroll through, find some stuff that looks interesting, and read it, react, talk about it, you know, the thing. That's how we do it. But yeah, man, I felt like it'd be fitting. I've been wanting to get into the creepy stuff, read some more Reddit stories and whatnot. Experimented with it a little bit before, but never on this channel here. So now's the time. It's late night. Got me some coffee. Up late. House is making creepy, creaky noises while I'm getting prepped to make videos and making my coffee and stuff. So I felt like, yeah, now's the time. Let's do it. Let's get into it. So we're here on Reddit in the Humanoid Encounters subreddit here. Story entitled Strange Encounter. Hey everyone, I'm a longtime lurker to the sub and I'm a personal believer in Bigfoot and other supernatural things, but I've never posted anything about it anywhere. Until now, of course, but to be honest, I don't really think it was a Bigfoot that I witnessed in the story I'm about to tell. More so, I'm just looking for answers as to what I saw. Suggestions to subs that may help or that are welcomed, as I'm a noob when it comes to Reddit. Alas, here is my encounter with something I cannot explain. This happened about 4 years ago in the small town of Cholula, Washington. My girlfriend, now ex, not that it really matters for the story, at the time, and I decided to plan a getaway trip for a long weekend in a yurt. Since we both love nature and going to a place far from the city in the middle of nowhere seemed like a good time, and it truly was a great time. The thing that struck me most about staying in that yurt was just how dark and quiet it was at nighttime in the middle of the night. When you're not used to the wilderness, it's quite striking how silent things can be and how dark the outside is when there's no light pollution involved. The outhouse where we had to go to the bathroom was about 75 yards away from the yurt, and you had to take a flashlight with you to navigate the darkness. The first night we were there, nature called and I went outside to find the bathroom. I shined the flashlight that cut through the darkness like a lightsaber around and spotted eyeshine. It was nothing more than a good-sized female deer, but I would have had no idea she was there if I didn't see its eyes via the flashlight. The actual encounter happened last night there at approximately 11 p.m. to midnight. We were playing cards inside the yurt by the fire when out of nowhere we heard this huge crash/bang on the side of the yurt, almost as if something threw itself into the side of it or was running and didn't see it there until it was too late kind of thing. Obviously startled, we wanted to see what made such a sound. As we were in the middle of nowhere, but we were still on a property and not very deep in the woods for it to have been a bear or a mountain lion. At least I thought so. What happens next is hard to explain. I threw the door open and shined my flashlight like I did the night prior when I saw the deer, and I saw something in the same spot, but it was different. It had no eye shine, and I only saw it for a moment, but it looked like it was white or gray and it had a slender build to it. What creeped me out was the way it moved. It seemed to crouch down while looking in my direction, slinking away out of the frame like a big cat or a monkey might move out of the way. And then I never saw anything after that. I didn't want to investigate because shit, I was scared it might have been a cougar or something, and I'm not trying to die in front of my girlfriend, even if she left me long after this. That aside, whatever I saw was unlike anything I've ever seen before. I didn't make out a face. I read on a post on this sub earlier today that someone had a Bigfoot encounter of it crawling across the ground. And for whatever reason, it made me remember this encounter and it sent shivers down my spine. I'm not saying it was a Bigfoot. Hell, it could have been something normal, I guess. I did only see it for maybe a few seconds at most. But I have never seen anything move like that in real life or even in a movie or TV show. It was strange, and I'm sorry if I'm rambling, but I guess I'm wondering if anyone has had a similar encounter or an explanation for what I could have saw. That's definitely a weird one, man. Sounds like one of those crawlers for sure. Definitely sounds like a crawler sighting from what I've read online. I haven't really heard too much about crawlers. It's kind of a newer one I've kind of stumbled upon and getting into the more of the Reddit story stuff. Skinwalker, I guess, would be probably the closest thing I've seen or read about when it comes to that kind of a thing. But yeah, it's kind of a new one. I see it's a very popular subreddit as well, the crawler sightings. I've seen some stories from there that are very interesting. So definitely something to look into. Definitely something to focus more on the channel. But yeah, man, super spooky story, man. Imagine just being like out in the woods like that in some little cabin thing, and then bam, something just slams into the side of it like that. Just startles the shit out of you. Oh man, that's wild. And then seeing some kind of like lanky creature just slink out of the way like that, crawling around like that. Nope, I'm out, dude. I'm not built for that. I'll read the stories about it, but I'm not going out there. I'm not doing it. But yeah, man, super creepy stuff. see what else we got here. Alrighty, here's another story here on Humanoid Encounters. Something chased me out of the woods in Indiana. This took place at around 11 p.m. on a Wednesday night in 2015. Let me start this story off like this. I'm an avid coyote hunter and used to absolutely love hunting them at night when they are most active. One night I decided I was going to take off and go hunting after the sun went down. I get home, load my gear, and hit the road. About an hour later, I pull into the parking area for the state forestry that I'm going to hunt. This particular place that I chose, I have had luck in the past and knew of a den about a mile from the main trail. So I set off down the graveled path unknowingly of what I was about to encounter in just a short while. My strategy is to walk 100 yards at a time, stop and blast a coyote locator call until I hear one respond. On the first set, nothing. Second set, nothing. However, on the third set, everything changed. The trail that I'm on made a very sharp, almost hairpin turn to the right, and in the middle of that hairpin is a Civil War area cemetery with a dense pine thicket behind it and a very steep bottom across the trail in front. I have a habit of walking through the cemetery and touching the main headstone, almost as a sign of respect or something. As I'm walking up to the headstone, I hear the faint sound of something landing on the ground in the pine thicket. The weird thing was that I only heard one boom, as if a human or bipedal thing touched down. Usually animals, bobcats, when they jump to the ground, its front paws first, then its rear, so boom boom. Immediately I start to feel uneasy and want to leave. The only problem? Whatever was in that pine thicket stood between me and the only way back to my truck. I started to notice the silence, like everything that was just making noise a minute ago was gone. At this point in time, I noticed the unmistakable feeling of being watched. I immediately started scanning the pine thicket to see if I could see something. Anything that would make this bizarre situation make sense. I scanned for what felt like hours, until finally I noticed it. On the edge of the thicket, there it was, this thing. Too tall to be human, maybe 7 or 8 feet tall. I could only make out the outline, but it looked emaciated and deathly. My mind had to be playing tricks on me, because this is the stuff you only read about and never encounter. My reality soon changed when this thing darted to the right and ran down into the bottom. This bottom was about 300 or 400 feet deep and very steep, but whatever this was got to the bottom of it in no time flat. The path to my truck was now clear, and I was trying to come up with a plan to make it. But, as I would soon discover, the thing ran into the bottom to better position itself for an ambush from behind. I waited for about 5 more minutes before I decided to move. I took one step forward and heard it. It was in the bottom directly below me, slowly working its way up the hill. I bolted straight across the trail, through the cemetery, and into the pine thicket towards the main road. I ran about 100 yards and stopped. The scariest part, when I stopped, it stopped. The entire time I was running, I could hear it running behind me, gaining on me. I always carry a pistol when I hunt, and it is always in a holster on my chest just in case. I decided that the only way I was making it out of here alive was to dump and run. Essentially, you fire in the direction of the threat until your mag is empty, and then you run like hell. I had 3 mags in total, 51 bullets between me and certain death. I counted 1, 2, 3, bang. I emptied the mag and made a mad dash as far as I could, never hearing the thing behind me. I stopped after what felt like hours, reloaded, and readied for another barrage of bullets. About 15 seconds after stopping, I started to hear crashing, like a big animal was blasting through the trees, running in my direction. Bang, I dumped and bolted. This time the plan was to run all the way to the truck, about a half mile from my current position through the woods. This time while running, I could hear it, getting closer and closer. I jumped behind a fallen log to reload one last time. The thing stopped, but I could hear its breath. I could hear the low growl this thing had, like a dog or coyote, mixed with something from the pits of hell. Bang, bang, bang. The slide of my pistol locked back and I was off. The truck now in sight, maybe 70 yards. I ran faster than I ever have in my entire life. I made it, finally. Jumped in, started my truck, and got the hell out of there. The entire time scanning the woods on either side and behind me. I've never been back in the woods of Brown County, Indiana at night alone, and more than likely never will. Holy shit, man, that's a crazy story, dude. Imagine seeing something like that, man. Just like the utter visceral fear you would feel just seeing something like that stalking you, something like twice your size like that, and just speeding through and like strategically trying to get to you. Oh man, no way, dude. That's so scary. Again, nope. So much nope, man. These crawlers are wild, man. That's some scary stuff. Alrighty, here's another one from Humanoid Encounters. I saw a faceless person at my workplace one day that vanished without a trace. Man, that sounds super creepy, so I want to get into this one. There's a picture too, like a diagram here. I'll pop that up. Edit. Forgot to mention, this was about a year ago, 2024, at a small restaurant I used to work at in the South. First of all, I've never seen or heard anything that wasn't there, so I have a sound mind. I figured I'd share this here since there aren't many people in real life who'd believe me because of how strange this encounter is. For context, I was working at a restaurant when hardly anyone was there. Most of the staff at that time, skeleton crew, had gone to break and it was just me in the back kitchen. I went to put some frozen stuff back in the freezer and went towards the tables. I drew the general layout below with the freezer to the left. And out of the corner of my eye, clear as day, I saw a humanoid figure standing in the doorway. Its head peeking around the corner, and as soon as it realized I saw it, it ducked away towards the front line / dining room area. I very quickly walked, more like ran, to the doorway, and no one was anywhere near the entire area. No one was even at the front line getting food. Even though it was for less than a second, I remember every detail about its face, or lack thereof. I know it sounds like a horror movie scene, but I promise, to anyone reading this, it just had deathly pale skin stretched over its face, where eyes, a nose, or mouth would be. I went over to the doorway after I couldn't find it, and measured where I saw its head at, compared to the top of the pizza ovens. And it was around 7 feet tall, too. No one anywhere near that tall works there. At the time, I was the tallest at 6 feet. Yeah, that's super unsettling, man. Just imagine being there by yourself and seeing something like that and it just disappears, man. Oh my God. I couldn't imagine. I've seen like shadow people before and I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about that kind of stuff. So like seeing it like a humanoid shape and then seeing it disappear like that is it's really fucked up. Yeah, it really fucks with you. So yeah, it really freaks you out. I'll go into my story at some other time. Super creepy stuff. But yeah, I've gotten some of my own personal stories with like unexplained events that I've seen. Not too many, just a few. I'll save them for a different video for just those stories, like my own personal ones. But let's get some more into some of these Reddit ones. But yeah, man, that's such a creepy story. Jeez. So we got one about Dogman. I'm big on Dogman right now, man. Dogman is the shit, dude. Super interesting to me, man. Again, another one, kind of like Crawler, something I hadn't really heard too much about, but I'm seeing there's a lot of talk of here in recent years online. So super interesting one for me, man. I'm not sure why, but just something about like a Dogman creature and like a hood or like even, not just like staring at you or like that weird feeling people get about it. Yeah, something about that's just so intriguing to me, man. So yeah, Dogman stuff, super intriguing. Let's get into this story from Humanoid Encounters, werewolf/Dogman of Monterey Hills, Los Angeles. So as I'm writing this, I've realized that I'm not that great of a writer, so bear with me if there are any typos or grammar errors. Thanks. Before I get into the story, here's some background info. Every day, usually after finishing homework or if we're just bored and had nothing to do, I take my dirt bike on a run to the nearest grocery store, which was about 3 miles away from where I live. To get there, I had to bike through one-way streets that snake through the secluded neighborhoods of the area. All the houses in these neighborhoods looked surprisingly upper middle class, which was strange considering my neighborhood, which was just down the hill, looked nowhere near as rich. But I didn't mind it too much. Focused more on how quiet and peaceful the drive through these streets was. To get to these streets, I had to chug my bike up multiple hills, which was a bit of a drag since my bike did pretty badly uphill, but taking these streets was safer than taking the main roads. This happened on the 15th of last month. It was a Friday, which meant that I could stay up late and play video games. My friend from school, whom I typically played with, weren't online, so I had nothing to do. In the mood for some chocolates, I decided to take a nighttime bike ride. My ride to the grocery store was normal. I parked my bike, got to my chocolates, and headed back. Since it was nighttime, I decided to take the normal streets, since there weren't many cars on the road. As I exited the normal streets and began my descent down the one-way streets that cut through the secluded neighborhoods, I noticed a car following close behind. This guy's headlights were cranked all the way up, which reflected through my bike's side mirrors, blinding me through my helmet. I decided to pull over and let the guy pass. I stopped my bike behind a car parked in the front of the house. Like all the houses on the block, the lights inside were off, so I wasn't worried of the owner of the house seeing me and thinking, why is that suspicious biker just sitting there behind my car? Also, I was mostly wearing all black, so I wouldn't be surprised if someone could mistake me for someone shady. I was probably sitting on my bike for about a minute waiting for this guy to pass, but his car hadn't turned the last corner. I didn't see any headlights coming down the road, so I figured he wasn't coming. Before I continued on my way, I decided to take in the night air. I flipped open the visor of my helmet and took in a deep breath. I turned off my bike's motor. It may sound like I'm sugarcoating this, but once I turned off my motor, the entire area fell dead silent. All that could be heard was the faint chittering of crickets, the wind blowing through the trees above. I just sat there with my head to the sky, eyes closed and arms limped to my side. It was so peaceful. All of a sudden, the distracting pitter-patter of footsteps came within earshot. Turning towards the footsteps, I noticed that they were coming from across the street. The footsteps didn't sound like a typical person's. It sounded much heavier. Suddenly, I saw a tall black figure emerge from behind a garden hedge in front of a home across the street from me. Whatever the thing was tall and fast. If I had to estimate how tall it was, I'd say it was nearing the 7-foot range. At this point, I was frozen with fear. The only part of me that moved was my head as I watched the figure run down the driveway of the home, the one with the garden hedge, and run the opposite way from me across the street. But as the figure crossed the street, the moonlight illuminated it, giving me somewhat of a clear picture of it. It looked like a stereotypical depiction of a werewolf. Sharp claws, bent legs, mangy fur, pointed ears, a toothy muzzle, etc. Basically just a wolf-human hybrid. My heart sank. The creature disappeared in the shadows cast by the homes across the street, but I could still hear its heavy footsteps as they grew further and further away. A minute passed, then another. I was left sitting on my bike, confused and frozen in fear. I didn't want to move, let alone turn on my bike's motor and alert everything in the area where I was. But I had no choice. I silently hopped on my bike and manually turned it the opposite way. I got on my bike, and the instant I turned on my bike's motor, I sped off. The ride back was a blur. All I remember was me zooming down the streets. I definitely was not going the speed limit, nevertheless stopping at stop signs. I just had to get out of there as fast as I could. Thank God that thing didn't see me hiding in the darkness. The second I got home, I told my parents the whole thing. Of course, they didn't believe me. I looked up on my computer if tonight was a full moon. To my horror, it was. I didn't get any sleep that night, fearing that the thing followed me home and was stalking me through my window. Jesus, I'm getting chills as I write this. I've kept the story a secret from my friends, as I know that if I tell them, they'll think I'm crazy. This is the first time I've talked about the story in full. I've been hit by a truck, bitten by a pit bull, I promise I'm not a werewolf, lol, and almost drowned, but this was by far the scariest thing I've ever encountered. I haven't gotten on my bike since. I imagine that if werewolves did live in or near Los Angeles, the area where I live, Monterey Hills, would be the best place for them to hide, as it was on the outskirts of everything, and each neighborhood is surrounded by empty hills. I attached a photo of the street where this occurred. What do you guys think? I feel good getting this off my chest. Man, Dogman stories are always so intense, man. They're so creepy. It's just like such a weird thing. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just like such a common animal that we all know and love, but then like also a common monster that we all know, like a werewolf, you know what I mean? So it's very similar to that. So it's something based in something that we are familiar with in multiple, ways. Kind of go in a cryptid kind of way with it. It's just so unnerving and creepy. I don't know. There's just something so alluring to me about Dogman. I definitely want to do more Dogman focused content and videos and stories and stuff. This was definitely a good story. Suburban Dogman. And imagine you're just like, there's houses and neighborhoods and it looks like, I don't know, Haddonfield from like Halloween or something. And you got Dogman running through the yards. No, dude, that's so crazy, man. It'd be so intense to see. But yeah, I've read and heard so many cool Dogman stories. I'm gonna have to go find some of them and maybe react to or like review them or whatever. Check out Belief Hole Podcast. Shout out Belief Hole Podcast. They put out some really cool Dogman stuff. All kinds of cryptid and like unknown creepy story stuff. So check them out, definitely. But yeah, that's kind of what got me going on Dogman, was watching their podcast. Alrighty, we got another story here. Humanoid encounters, 1996, Eastern Canada. Encounter with Sandown Clown. For the sake of not just forwarding to my post on another Reddit group, I would just repeat it in full here. At 5, I encountered, spoke to, and physically touched the Sandown Clown. My experience was the subject of a listener episode of the Kryptonauts podcast, but I would do my best to give the cliff notes of my experience. At the time of the event, I was 4 or 5 years old and the sun was beginning to descend, so late afternoon at best. My memory of what happened sticks out because it would shape the things I would draw as I grew older. I was sitting on a large boulder in my grandparents' backyard. It had been dug out some time before me to make way for a large decorative fish pond that, by my time, was rarely used except to entertain me. My grandfather had just gotten inside, and I knew enough to not go swimming in the gross water. It was at this moment I heard a noise to my right and I turned. To the right of my grandparents' home was the neighbor's massive field. I can't remember what crop they grew, but the tall grass at the time probably means it hadn't been used in a while. Standing in the grass was a figure with a scarecrow pose. Arms out, straight body, his hat was cone-shaped, his face features wooden. He had a jack-o'-lantern face with an empty nose hole, but he still looked alive. But when he talked, his mouth didn't move. I could hear him in my head, like telepathy. He gave off major clown vibes, which I was comfortable with, as both my parents did charity events as clowns. I would say he was about 6 or 7 feet tall, with wide shoulders. He wore scarecrow clothes, with patches of bright colors over pale brown and black. But what he said to me was what your podcast re-sparked in my memory, and left me with the distinct knowledge that not only was I not the only one around, not the only one anymore to have seen him, but that a vivid experience could have been something more sinister. He waved a wooden hand, and I heard a voice say, "Hello, Sam, we are all colors." I remember distinctly that he asked it as a question, and I responded with, "My name is Luke, not Sam." I wasn't scared. I felt calm and relaxed until the end of the encounter. He pointed at himself and did a short bow, then reached out into the field next to him and opened a door. The door had not been there before and was not attached to anything. I could see inside the gap of the door, and the room inside was green with wooden chairs. He motioned for me to come with him. I remember getting up off the boulder, walking with him through the door, and being enveloped by bright red and green Christmas lights. They were as bright as the sun, and I had to close my eyes to keep from going blind, or so I thought. I woke up laying on my grandparents' couch. It was dark outside. My parents rushed in when I called out to them. They had found me half an hour before, asleep in the middle of the field, having called for me and not hearing me answer when things got dark. It was last year when I first started hearing about the Sam the Sandown Clown encounter, and I had remarked how similar it was to my own encounter. I honestly believe they were either the same or a slightly different entity as my own encounter. As it's been months since my encounter appeared on the podcast, I've been able to deal better with the newer information connected to my experience. Sam didn't try any tricks with me, like with the children from the Isles of Man. Sam's voice wasn't vocal, if that makes sense. It was like an echo hitting off something and hearing that inside my head rather than through my ears. Thinking it over, I believe the full sentence was, "Hello, Sam, we are all colors? Skip the starlight." The inside of the green room had come up again in my mind. I've tried remembering other details. When I sat down and tried to nail down anything else about it, I distinctly recall that there were 2 empty wooden chairs and 2 occupied chairs further back. The door was see-through. I never saw a doorknob. I couldn't make out details about the other people sitting in the chairs, but they had the same outline as, well, Sam, the hat, the head shape, long arms, and legs. But details are just a void, like when someone's face gets blurred to protect their identity. I thought I would share my experience here, finally, as I feel much better about it than initially. That is such a weird story. Holy shit. That's super creepy. It's so off-putting and like otherworldly, like interdimensional or something. You know what I mean? Oh man, that sounds like Pennywise. You know what I mean? Oh wow. The Sandown Clown. I've never heard of that. So apparently there's something to this, because I was like kind of flipping through these comments here. And there's some people mentioning that they're like, you know, like really enthralled with the story of this clown, and like there's more stories to it, and like this Isles of Man thing mentioned in the story here. So yeah, definitely something to look more into, and maybe we can look at some focused videos on this Sandown Clown thing. That sounds really cool to look into. But yeah, what a weird story, man. So creepy and so unsettling that he was only like 5 years old. That's such a weird thing to picture. It's such a weird story to get into. Yeah, super off-putting and weird, and just feels demonic and evil. You know what I mean? It just feels like Pennywise or something. You know what I mean? Super creepy. Alrighty, I think we'll do one more here on humanoid encounters. This one's called We Saw a Pale Humanoid. My friends and I saw on the night I am writing this, in the late hours of November 30th, in the early morning of December 1st, 2024. We live in southern Arizona and are all staying the night at a friend's house for a birthday party. Her house is known between all of us as the haunted house, since we're always experiencing weird things here. But this time, right after the sun had set, we were sitting on the porch in the backyard when one of us yelled and pointed at the chest-high brick fence, saying she just saw a bald white human head poke itself over the fence. Two of us immediately ran over and looked over the fence to see nothing. We laughed that off, but it was just the first sighting of the night. We hung out outside a little longer until we decided to check over the fence again. While we were doing so, we heard scuttering on the outside of the fence out of view. We joked about it and just went inside instead. Skip to a while later, we went outside again, and almost right away, someone saw a head pop up around another fence. Again, we all thought it was nothing, but more of us started seeing a head, hands, and part of a back. At that point, we were scared as hell and started going back inside, when one friend stayed back and scared the living shit out of us, but she was just standing and looking. We stayed there for a while, now with one friend holding a broom. They lost their broom privileges soon after, and we kept seeing small things of white and some of the same things from before. Our other friends, previously inside, came outside again, scaring the shit out of us, and we all started talking about things we saw and what it could be when we kept seeing things. And eventually, two people heard a growling, and it was very clear they both weren't faking it, and we all ran inside and started panicking, trying to reason with the fact that there was a skinny, bald white man crawling around outside. We eventually found this, and thank goodness, because believe it or not, it made us all feel much better. This was our story. Believe it or not. You think it's real, or are we just crazy teenagers? Yeah, definitely another weird crawler story, man. Creepy, skinny, bald guy crawler dudes. So yeah, man, super creepy story. That one's a little weirdly written, but it works. You know, it's Reddit. It's gonna be what it is. And they said they just typed it like right after they saw it, so they were probably still up late and stuff like that. It is what it is. It's all right. But yeah, man, I think that's going to do it for the video. Just wanted to read through a few stories, give a little reactions, talk a little bit about them. I'm Johnny Breaux. Hope you enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for more, and I'll see you next time.